eVTOL, I believe, is one of the three main technologies over the next 20 years that are just going to explode. Thinking about parcel delivery by air, the ability to be able to commute by air, to humanize travel.
Now that dream is becoming reality, and the race is on to be the first to launch. Rival companies in America, Europe and China are competing to be the first to develop aerial passenger taxis. The man hoping it will once again be Britain that leads the way is entrepreneur Martin Warner.
Britain desires an Elon Musk character. I see some commonality, for sure. Are we similar? Maybe in some ways, maybe not. Do I have as much money as him? No. Would I go into his areas? No. Should he be an eVTOL? Probably yes. My name is Martin Warner. I'm British. I've lived in the US for about 25 years. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an inventor.
Today we've got something new in the industry. Bot Objects ProDesk 3D. This is the world's first desktop-sized, full-color 3D printer.
I'm an occasional film producer. I'm an investor. I do a variety of different things, but predominantly I'm an entrepreneur and I teach entrepreneurship. And I'll tell you what most people tell you, that if you don't have something, you better go out and do something. But I would argue that as a somewhat slightly introverted character, I wanted to just lead myself, take control of my destiny. I think I knew as a kid the things I did were important, or at least in my head. I believed so much. So if I built something, I'm like, well, I could sell that. And so I thought to myself, let's just find something that I really wanted to do. In today's world, you can't build a business in 17 months and sell it for $50 million as easy as you could over 8 to 10 years amass a $1 billion valuation. And there are a few reasons, but there are two big reasons. Pre-screening, ideation is a kind of buzzword for idea creation. Validating everything before you start, wasting time, money and resources. This is a big part of the early startup. Let's talk about the inspiration bit. So some people are just born creative, some aren't. We can all get there. So we get there by using our brain to say, look, I love this space. Let me go and jump into a community of other people talking about AI. And together we'll go and co-found something together. And so we come from the bottom with skills. This is great. There's nothing wrong with that. There are other ways to nurture rather than bring nature to get to the idea. But we must find a big idea to attach to. Recently, I was talking to a friend about generative AI, and I was thinking about the different applications of AI. And I have a research lab, I think, just about AI, and it happens in my eVTOL business. eVTOL, I believe, is one of the three main technologies over the next 20 years that are just going to explode. Thinking about parcel delivery by air. So what Walmart, Amazon, Google, all these guys are doing, DHL, etc. And it kind of moved into the passenger vehicle market. Hence, the industry has been called urban air mobility, the ability to be able to commute by air, to humanize travel. So the idea is to imagine that New York, Paris, or London could put 2 million commuters in the air. The next stage, when I come up with those ideas, I decide if I'm going to pursue them. I journal a lot. So I have an ideas list, right? It's 1,268. I try to cull them. I think in pyramids. If you think about ideas, just three simple ways. One is it's broken because you can't see the whole scope of the idea. You can't see the end. You know there's something there, get rid of it. Don't commit your mind to it, because if it's important, it will come back to me. If I've got an idea that I can see scope, I can see the end, the top of the pyramid, and I can see the foundation, but I can't see the middle. I write that down, and then I categorize that idea. Over time, they interconnect. They form a life of their own in a particular category, like aviation, or AI, or entertainment, sports, or film. So, I'll decide I'm going to do something with the Cannes Film Festival, and then realize it affects a movie and a PR venture that I'm going to do during the Cannes Film Festival. These started out as three different ideas. The whole goal is to invite people to appreciate and understand more of a diverse range of content for cinema. Indeed, I would argue the face of cinema is held in the independent film market, not the studio market. What we do is we take award-winning independent movies from film festivals around the world, and we acquire those licenses over 5, 7, or 10 years, just like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon would do, and then we place them on our streaming platform, Flix Premier. So that's the second one. I call them good ideas. If it's a great idea, it means you must execute it straight away. You know where to start, you know the kind of resources it's going to take, you can see the end, and you are telling yourself, with a view of everything else that you have, that you must do that idea. This is very important in startup. There's a lot you can do in fundraising. There's a lot of tricks. And then there's the way you engage with the investor. Is you look at their portfolio, you look at the general competencies of that area, and you tell them why yours is better than someone else's for a particular reason. You'll take the meeting. One-on-one selling. Identify with something that's already there. Tell them that you can improve it, well, they must find out. That gets you in the door. Bot Objects was not my greatest financial opportunity, but it's by far the most impressive in terms of what was happening. The bot for robotics and objects because you create something. So we said pro for professional, desk because the 3D printer sat on the desk, and 3D. So the product became the ProDesk 3D. And in 17 months, we proceeded on the basis that we thought that every home one day would have a 3D printer. It'd be like a microwave. You'd press a button and you'd create something that you thought had utility. So we were creating a Lamborghini for a Mercedes price. And the complexity of this, it was harder than building a PC. That 17 months had everything from aggressive competitors to distrusting media to a frenzied approach towards innovation. In today's world, you can't build a business in 17 months and sell it for $50 million as easy as you could over 8 to 10 years amass $1 billion valuation. And there are a few reasons, but there are two big reasons. One is that there are unproven scaling triggers. It's too early. And the other one is you have to desire that you are going to correct your decision making, either through trial and iteration or through failure, because of the speed you're moving at. That means you're going to take on an awful lot of risk and some very complex decisions, and it's likely to be a fast-paced journey. And that's what we did at Bot Objects, where we invented full-color 3D printing. Most people, they build a great product, they monetize it, they've got some good numbers, they've got a dynamic young entrepreneur learning, and they get schooled by the venture capitalist or maybe an angel syndicate or whatever. But it's a little more complicated than that. I prefer to have as much control as possible. Do I want to take all the risk? No, not always. I think very carefully, A, about the number of rounds, B, how much can I do in the beginning in terms of value creation, or what we might call asset accretion. How do I build and accrete the value of assets so that I get to a proof of concept or to the first round of monetization before then raising capital? You have to try and do that for as little as possible. And you also have to do that even if that means saving up your money or using friends and family or whatever you're doing without going and diluting your company too quick. The world is full of too many founders that dilute themselves out of a company. And even if it was to grow well, they're not going to have much of that company at the end. As for the size, it's a very important question. Why don't I just go and stay with a company? I think the company all depends on the initiative. Do I think I'm going to put aircraft in the air or collaborate with Airbus or someone else? We'll have to wait and see. But those opportunities come. But I think there's a lot of reward along the way. Stay small as long as you can. Don't give away as much as your company as you need to. Do as much as you can with as little resource and reuse your assets. There are different ways to develop a startup, and perhaps I would separate this as the construct of being two very different things in definition. One is, what are the motivations for creating a company? And then what are the economic levers for doing that? These are routes to scale, but not to different kinds of businesses necessarily. Perhaps the question is more interesting from a motivation perspective. What is a founder trying to do with a company? So we can create companies that change the world that are not about capital. That's why we have social capital. There's intellectual property companies where we want to build, I focus on this. How do we build intellectual property that's valuable, that has a cause, has a reason to exist in life? There are good causes. There are things that maybe organizations that have other economic levers but don't need to make profits, or they can be for profit that are doing good causes. So companies that are less about the traditional idea of let's just make it big or go home, because that doesn't change the world. It may be that someone develops something great about water salination. These are great businesses that require a different set of resources to perform a worthwhile task. There are connecting businesses, network businesses. Now these network businesses can be the biggest companies in the world, Facebook. They can be network businesses as being smaller companies. The film business, we can use Flix Premier as an example of networking what is a broken market of distribution in order to ensure that all these movies get aggregated and therefore could be placed onto streaming platforms. So it's great. We find founders that have all these different opportunities. And by doing that, they can achieve an economic lever that's different. They can save up with their own money. They can invite sweat capital. The idea that I ask you to come and work with me and I give you a piece of the outcome, the product or equity in the company for your skills. It may well be you'll take a bank loan. It might well be that you'll take donations, or you'll use another type of ancillary business, advertising, to fund content creation. All of these can be worthwhile. Entrepreneur Seminar, just over 22 and a half year, convey my obsession with entrepreneurship and to teach students that want to learn from others. This gets me to a point that I think part of me is that I'm a teacher, is that I like to teach, and I've trained in different ways over the years. I'm hugely fulfilled from teaching entrepreneurs. I've also collaborated with a lot of those entrepreneurs. It's a great network. I tell all entrepreneurs it's better to have tried than to have not tried at all. In other words, stop talking, start doing. That does not mean that everyone is going to be in business for themselves. Everyone deserves the right to try. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship. And I tell them this up front on the program. It's important that they do training with me, with someone else. I don't like a lot of the training out there, not because I won't put any training down, but it wasn't sufficient. It's why I built my program. People think they can learn just from things like YouTube. I think YouTube's fantastic, but I think there's more substance. And what I coach young people, I was already getting old. I already had a lot of success and a lot of challenges. We still need substance. We still need to know what underpins the theory of selling, what underpins marketing, what underpins fundraising, because that's not changed. So I teach my team the step diagram. How do you set up your company and stop? How do you set it up ready to exit that could be 5 years away and then do no more? Now start building. How do you monetize customers? How do you reuse your assets? How do you stop when you know you've solved the problem? Go on and solve another one. This is really, really important. So if I can empower more entrepreneurs, I can empower more innovations. Therefore, I think the world can become a better place.